Hey there, Mudroomers. It is Carmen here with Mayco, and today I'm going to talk about our Stoneware Glaze Copper Float. Copper Float, as well as all of our stoneware glazes, is available in 16-ounce pints for brushing, as well as 5-pound bags of dry material for dipping. Copper Float is both a food and dinnerware safe product. You can find the dinnerware safety icon on the side of the label here next to the barcode. All of our stoneware glazes do pass FDA standards to be considered food safe, whereas our dinnerware safe icon will be Mayco's recommendation as to the use on functional dinnerware. So definitely keep an eye on that. The information is also available on our website. And then on all of our pints and our dry bags, you're going to have a lot number next to the barcode. This is going to be important for if you have any technical requests. That'll be the first thing that our team asks for, so definitely be informed as to where that is. And with the dry bags, maybe take a picture of it or write it down somewhere so that it's available, because it's really hard for us to do tests if we're not really sure which batch we're looking at. And then on the front here, we have our firing range from cone 5 to 10. All of our samples we do at cone 6 on a white stoneware body unless otherwise noted. So that's what you can expect. If you are firing to cone 6, there will be some variation with some of our glazes at cone 5, and almost all of our glazes do have variation when you take them up to cone 10. We do have cone 10 reduction results posted on our website, so definitely check that out if you are a cone 10 person. On the back here, we've just got our firing results, basic application instructions, as well as suggestions and tips, and any safety information. So definitely get a good look at that label there. Today we're going to go over different tiles with firing temperatures, fluxes, combinations, and different clay bodies. I do want to kind of apply glaze to a piece throughout this video just so you guys can see kind of basic application for all of our stoneware glazes. So I'm just going to glaze one of these tiles just like I glazed these tiles. So this is what it'll come out as. I just want to show you the actual glazing process. So first I'm going to pour some Copper Float into a little container here. And this is always good to prevent contamination of glazes, as well as to stop it from drying out. Because if you're glazing something and you have your jar of glaze open for the whole time you're glazing it, you're getting a lot of air in there and it's going to dry out. You're going to get those crusties all over the top there. And this gives you a good opportunity to kind of clean off the top of your glaze anyway. So this is a really good way to keep your glaze jars nice and clean and your glazes to be a good consistency. So I'm just going to set that up actually over on the side here so I can just kind of monitor it while I go over these. So I'm just going to show you 1, 2, and 3 coats, kind of just like how I have on this tile here. So when I'm applying my glaze, I basically want to make sure I'm putting enough glaze on. So I typically use our RB 604 fans. If you are glazing a large piece, or if you happen to be a light glazer, we do have a larger fan that's available. So if you do notice a lot of your pieces show up streaky or glaze starved, no matter how much you try, maybe if you have a different tool, it would help you apply a bit more glaze. So definitely recommend a natural fiber fan of any type. The size is kind of up to you, but these ones plump up really nice and hold glaze well. So I'm just going to get my brush nice and saturated here. So I really have it nice and plump. It's almost dripping onto my tile. And I'm just spreading it across like peanut butter. I don't want to have my glaze brush pulling or anything like that. So that was a pretty hardy coat there. I'm gonna showcase kind of how it's too starved here, so if you can hear it, or when you start kind of having streaks when you drag it across, that's how you know you need to put more glaze on your brush. So when you finish your coat, should be nice and saturated. You can see how wet that is. Even on the first coat, it's taking a little bit to dry. So that's how I know this is nice and heavy. I can apply these coats confidently with our Copper Float glaze in particular because this glaze does not move. It's really hard to get to move. If you apply it with another really mobile glaze or a Flux and put those on really heavy, you can get some mobility, but otherwise it's going to be very, very stable. So this is one that you can feel really comfortable just lathering that glaze on there depending how you want it to look. So we'll segue right into how you can make it look. Here we have, this is what we would consider our kind of standard for Mayco because it's on a white stoneware body, fired to cone 6. So this is kind of our baseline that we base everything off of. So this tile here, you have 1, 2, and 3 coats. You can see the glaze is going to be a lot darker with 1 coat, and it's going to get really a lot more sparkly with 3 coats here. It does break well over texture, no matter how much you put on it, so this is a really good one to showcase texture. And then on the back here I have just 3 coats on its own, so you can see these beautiful crystal blooms that happen, and this is just kind of natural to happen with this glaze. So this is a really, really lovely glaze here. And here I'm going to go ahead and just do a comparison with the cone 5 results. So cone 5 results turned out a bit darker and a bit more like coppery rather than this rusty orange color. I think it's a little brighter, where this is a little warmer in color. So 1, 2, and 3 coats, it does build up the color really well, and this still breaks over texture. And then on the back here we have our comparison for cone 5 and 6 with 3 coats. So there we have our cone 6 and cone 5. I'm going to go ahead and put another coat on here. We still have a bit of gloss in the texture here, but it's mostly dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put another coat on. I'm going to do this one like those tiles that I showed you, so just do 1, 2, and 3 coats. So there's 2 coats. This one I didn't quite lather on as heavy. That first one was, I got a little too much glaze for the amount of space I had. So this looks like a good coat. It's still lathered on there really well and staying nice and shiny throughout my application. So we'll let that dry and we'll go into our cone 10 results here. So here we have, on the cone 10 results, I just have the 3 coats on the texture here. Instead of doing the 1, 2, and 3, I have Flux on the back, so that's why that's how this is. But here we have our comparison for cone 6 and cone 10. That definitely adds mobility at cone 10. You can see how it pulls down here. And then you do have some crystal blooming that occurs, but mostly you get a nice variegated brown. It does also break over texture, but definitely keep in mind with the mobility so you can possibly recede the coats. If you want to glaze the whole entire thing, maybe doing an underglaze on the bottom section of the piece as a buffer to allow this glaze to move a little bit, or just don't bring it down to the bottom. Layer it with another glaze that's a little bit more stable. So here we have 5, 6, and 10 results. And then now we can go over our Flux with Copper Float. So here are our Fluxes. This has Flux applied underneath the Copper Float. So the Flux is still very prominent when it's fired underneath. It does add a decent amount of mobility. This is 2 coats of Flux underneath 3 coats of Copper Float. If you wanted to reduce the mobility, perhaps adding less Flux or even less Copper Float. So just the less product, the less mobile it will be. This is a very stable glaze on its own, but layering it can add mobility to combos. So keep that in mind when you're pairing it with other glazes. And here we have Flux over Copper Float. So it's not quite as bright as when it's under, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's like less intermingling, but still a decent amount of mobility that happens here. So again, Here is copper or Flux under Copper Float and Flux over Copper Float. And then here we have it at cone 10. On cone 10 we just have the Flux over, so you can compare cone 6 to cone 10. It's kind of interesting here. It looks matte. Even the cone 10 results turned out a little bit more matte than our cone 6 results, but I think it's funny that it translates to the Flux as well. So this is all cone 10 reduction as well. I'm not sure if I was just saying cone 10, but all cone 10 things that we're doing are going to be reduction. We have reduction firings that we work on with these. Alright, so let's check out this guy before I do my combos. I'll just go ahead and wait. We still have some decent little shiny spots here. So I'll just do the combos and then I can talk or do our final coat and then we'll be good to go. So here we have our lovely combo cups. We do have combo cups at cone 6 and cone 10. We make sheets. They're all available on our website. We also post them on social media, but for the full sheets as well as a searchable combo gallery, check out our website. Again, cone 6 and cone 10 reduction. We do have low fire combos on there as well if you dabble in low fire things too. And the low fire combos are with elements and jungle gems. So this is an example where adding or layering Copper Float with another glaze adds some mobility. You can see here by how it's starting to drip down. Typically our combos don't go much lower than this, so this is mobility that's happening. This is Copper Float layered with robin's egg. So on their own, both of these glazes are very stable, but together, the crystals as well as just the mobility of layering the glazes does make it move a little bit. So this is something to pay attention to when you're looking at our combo cups on our gallery. You know, how much are they moving? So this here is a glaze that's very stable. So this is where we typically cut off our glazes. So this moved down a little bit here. And so here we have a yellow gloss over Copper Float. And as you can see, it didn't move at all because yellow gloss is super, super stiff. So if you're layering Copper Float with a very stiff glaze, it's not going to add movement. But there are glazes that, like robin's egg, that is kind of matte and it seems stiff, but it actually does have movement. It breaks over texture. Things like that are good tells as to whether a glaze is going to add mobility in a combination. So yellow gloss does not add mobility, so these two stable glazes stay nice and stable. And this is yellow gloss over Copper Float. These are all over. And then finally we have our gray opal over Copper Float. Gray opal, again, it's similar to Copper Float in a sense that it's not going to be really mobile on its own, but in combination it breaks, or in combination it does add mobility. This glaze, both of these glazes break over texture as well as have a lot of variation with the application, and so that's kind of showcasing here. When you mix them together, the more product, the more mobile it would be. So if you wanted to guarantee that this combo wouldn't move, maybe only do one coat of gray opal or only one coat of the Copper Float. It would change the results a little bit, like you might end up with some more brown or some more of this gray bluish color. But that's definitely something to test with if you want to be more sure of how much something's going to move. So I'm going over all of these to kind of showcase the properties of the glaze so that you can make informed decisions when you're doing your glazing. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. So we'll add our third coat here and then we'll go over our alternative clay bodies. So we have 1, 2, we're going to do a third coat. I'll need an even lighter glaze, but this is still nice and plumped on here. So just do my third coat, make sure to get in that texture. Great. So here we've got 1, 2, and 3 coats, and fired to cone 6 it would look very similar to this. Alright, and then finally we have our alternative clay bodies. Here we have a speckled, a speckled white body, a speckled brown body, and a dark brown body. So this glaze plays really, really well on all of these. These were fired with to cone 6 with a drop hold and a slow cool. I've posted all these, the firing schedule on our social media, and I can make sure to link it in our YouTube video as well, just so that people have access to it. But this glaze might not necessarily need all of that. This glaze would probably get away with just a hold at the top or a drop hold. It performs really, really well with other clay bodies. So the speckled white clay body we have here doesn't really change that much, actually. Same with the speckled brown. And then the dark brown here. And this darkens it up a bit, but not extremely. So yeah, this guy plays really well on other clay bodies. So I think that is all I have for you today in regards of our copper float glaze. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. I'm going to link a bunch of resources in the description of this video. We have our combo gallery, technical contact, firing information, and all sorts of things like that. So definitely check that out, and please drop any comments or questions that you have in our comment section. I love the feedback on the videos so I can improve the quality for the future. So again, thanks so much for tuning in today, and as always, make it Mayco.